Hey everyone, Tim Higgins here. So we're going to talk about this new product that I've been playing with. It's not new to the market, but it's new to me. And I thought I'd kind of give an introduction. Now, it's Live API Creator, which is part of Layer 7 suite that is owned by Broadcom now. So the one thing I want to point out right away is this is version 5. Looks like 5.4. Doing version 3, I had a lot of problems with, so I don't recommend going that one. A lot of the links didn't work, and 5 has some new features that you definitely want to benefit from. So this video isn't for people who has used Layer 7 Live API Creator. It's for people like me who never has, okay? So the first thing, the idea is that it creates APIs for you. I really love that. There's two main ways to create the APIs. There is the, so if we say, let's go ahead and do it. So if we create a new API, we can do database first. So I come from a programming background, and there's such things like entity framework and things like that that looks at the model of your database and creates objects for you. That's kind of what that does, and that's what we're going to look at. The other one is code first, which means you create it by writing the code. And if you read, it's very heavily on JavaScript. So you would create your APIs, and you can actually create a database model that would go back and create the database for you. So let's go ahead and just say create first. Now, this was kind of tricky of getting all these in there. So if you have any problems, I definitely read the help or just ask me, I guess. But we're going to start with a SQL. And then here, I've got to put in my connection, so bear with me while I pull everything up. I'm going to drag it to the other screen because you all don't need to care about what this is, but this is my database. And we'll look at a database called Orders. I use it a lot for my other demos like TDM and things like that, but it's basically a database that if I screw up, I don't hurt anything. And we'll go ahead and just connect as the admin just because I want to make sure I have full rights. I'm not sure that's important, but who cares? So test connection works. I'm going to say continue. And if you notice, it actually created something back there for me. We'll look at that in a few minutes, but it's notice there's 31 tables, 38 relationships, no stored procedures, 7 views. It actually pulls all that in, which is kind of cool. So we'll just say continue. And then here's a summary of what it gave us. Okay, now I can export this information out into a zip file. So I think I can import it somewhere else, like to another API creator. I was trying to think of the proper name. I keep wanting to say Layer 7. But once we look at this, this has created a layer for us just by looking at the schema of our database, and it really was that fast. So we'll go through some of these, and I'll give you some high points. And I'll tell you where I still need to look up. And on this side, you do have some good help, quick start. Now, in the older versions, again, none of that worked. So at least here it works. You also, I probably should have shown you, if you start from the parent page, the Learning Center, this is a really good, now I haven't went through all this yet just because I just upgraded to 5.4 this morning. But a lot of this is actually really good. And in the older versions, none of this worked. So I recommend kind of walking through some of this because it will also show you the benefit of using the Live API Creator. And I'm going to kind of give you a quick through here. And also there's a very good video here as well. I kind of watched it this morning, but I didn't do the quick start yet. So let's go back and look at ours. So if we go back to our properties, API properties that are here, let's go to our details. Now I don't like, it creates this kind of like this garbage at the end. I don't like that. So let's call it orders. I think it's like some kind of ID that it creates. So the API name, we'll call it orders. That's a very bad naming for an API, but I'll just call it orders tables. Our fragment is orders. You'll see where that comes into play shortly. If I want to use any kind of authentication, we'll get to that in a bit, but I'm going to go ahead and save this. Again, I can export it. I can verify that the API works. No problems detecting the API, and you'll see where that comes into play when we get to our test lab. The settings, there's a lot of settings that you can set just on your API. Now, I hope I expressed that enough to where this really generated a list of APIs for you already. What we're doing is we're looking at, this is a global set of properties. You know what, it's probably only fair if I show you. So if I click here, these APIs are already created for me just by looking at the database. So if I say addresses, and I test this one by hitting get, it already pulls back the data. And here is the URL. Now, there's a reason I can't hit the URL, but I'll show you what a developer would be using. They would be using that URL. Notice there's no authentication found. It's because we didn't set one up. So let's go back over here. And what we were looking at was our properties. Here's our details. Okay, so I changed the name a little bit. The settings, the one thing that I found was kind of useful is you can generate docs. I would put your docs URL in here. And if you want to know what something is, hit this right here. And this is actually really good. Like I said, in the older versions, this didn't work. But here it actually does. So if I want to know what audit user transactions are, then I can click on this and it tells me what they are. I can click here and go get more details from Broadcom's actually documentation, which is awesome. Okay, so we'll go to libraries. Libraries are really cool. When you think of libraries, think of like JavaScript libraries. And notice it even changed over here for me. But let's say you want to include some libraries for your system. If you create custom APIs and you want to add some libraries to it, like for an example, if I want to add, I thought JSON was in here, but let's say if I have a JSON one, or if not, then I can just go get it. Also, the same with these, if I don't know what something is, I can click on it, and this will take me to the documentation of it. Okay, but I can also include things. So if I need to go and get the JSON library, right? So this would be JSON library. Make sure I spell library correctly. Library, my version, just a short name, probably the same thing. Give it a description, and then I go choose my code or my file, what type it is, right? And then if there's a link to the docs or a reference to the docs, I can add that as well for other developers. That's really cool. Topics. I'm not really 100% sure about what a topic is, to be blunt with you. But it says a topic is an arbitrary grouping of your logic, of the logic in your system. So I kind of need to play with this one because on 3.5, I didn't see this in there when I was looking at that. So this one's kind of new to me this morning. So give me some time and I'll look at it. If I hit add, it gives me this pretty little UI, I guess. So I'm not sure what I can do with that, but yeah. So anyway, so that's the topic. Let's just delete that. We'll have to do some more research on that one. Filters are pretty straightforward, and this is a good example of filters. When I think of filters, think about if I wanted to say, give me all users where user equals Tim. Okay, so that's a filter. One thing that was important to me to realize is, and of course they got some good examples over here, but one thing that was important to me to realize is when I think of filters, when I think of sorts and things like that, I shouldn't be thinking of APIs. I should be thinking of the database. So if I had a table in here and I wanted to go to orders, and let's just say I want to do addresses maybe, and I only want to get, where's addresses right here? Select. And I only want to get where the city is Tennessee. So I could do that here, right? Okay, so to me, that is a filter. Now, it probably, you need some cleanup and stuff like that, but it's a global filter that you can set, and that's really cool. The same with your sorts. Sorts is kind of the same thing as what you'd expect. If I want to say, sort order by users, okay, now it has to match name. I'm just giving you an example. So you'd want to look at your database and make sure everything's spelled correctly. But that's really cool that it's there for you. So let's go ahead and delete this one. So again, filters is a way to filter your data. Sort obviously is a sort, descending, ascending, right? Again, think of database, don't think of code. One thing I did read though is filters are not very production friendly, I guess. Filters are, they say not to really use it so much in production because they can easily be hacked for some reason. I don't know if that was changed because that was in the version 3.0, but here's some good examples of filters. Now, these filters will come as part of your API, right? So if you're ever used to seeing the word filter across your API or the word sort across your API, that's where those come in at, okay? So data sources is really cool. This is where we connected to our database. And here's the cool thing about it. I can have multiple data sources. And we'll look why in a few minutes. In those data sources, I can have schema filters, okay? I can have sequences, right? So sequence means if a table is dependent on another table because of, so this sequence here, I guess bad example because I don't know this database is enough. But the point is, if my relationships are, I saw that word, so I thought I'd use it. If my relationships are connected, but yet they have to be done in a certain sequence, then that's where this can come at, okay? And of course an error log, which is really cool. So if I have an error, because this is at my data source level. The good thing is about data source, if I come down to schemas, this sees my schema. And based off of this, I can see relationships. I can update these relationships. I can see views. Now, one thing I'm not 100% positive about is if I make changes, will it go back and write it back to the database? So until I learn more, you want to be careful doing that, because if I go in there and delete my addresses table, or if I break a relationship, that may break my application, right? So be careful with that. But if you're in a dev environment or QA environment, you're playing with this, then by all means, I don't think it would hurt. Just know what changes you made so you can go make them back. Now, resources. Resources is pretty cool. The way I look at a resource is think of it as more of a virtual type model, okay? So here I can create a model that I can use for my APIs. And I think it says something like that over here, or maybe I clicked away from it. Well, they call it a data abstraction layer. To me, that's more of a model, right? So the best part is you can join multiple databases to make this model. So when I go back up here to my schema, let me delete this because I don't want to break what I've got. But when I go back to my data sources, if I add another data source, then I can go down and I can create, I could create another resource that links those together. And to me, that would be a model that my APIs could use. Fair enough, right? So rules. Rules to me are really cool. And again, I'm kind of just flying through this. Most of the videos I saw are more marketing and more sales. So they show this little image that you see here, and I get it, and it's the truth. But as a techie person, you kind of want to know how to use this as well. So the concept as a rule is if I want to do a sum on a table, or if I want to do a formula on a table. So these are rules that I can create. So if a good example is if I need an API that says how many sales did we do last year, maybe I could find, I don't know if there's sales in here, but you know what, there's orders. So if I look at orders and I want to do a sum of how many orders I had last year, then I can go to this screen and I want it to be on order total, maybe. But there's no child relationships. So, oh, there are. Holy smokes, Batman. All right, so we go here and I'll take it on quantity and we'll make it active. And then we'll just activate this one. There we go. So just like that, I created a rule. Okay. Now, if you noticed, I kind of clicked away too soon, but this was filling in as I was going. So I would take your time and look through this when you're clicking creating a new rule. So notice it kind of changes. So here, sum equals that, where ship can't be null. Okay. Again, think of a database. Don't think so much of as code. Functions, kind of the same thing, except for here you're going to create. To me, function is code. I know I just said that. But functions are handwritten REST endpoint. So if I create one of these, then I can do something like this. Okay. Notice here, so we'll say, hello, right? That's my endpoint. So notice it looks at as a code, and here's the body of that code, right? And it's JavaScript. So, you can go through here and look at these. It even documents it for you, and it's pretty cool. So we're not going to do this because I don't know if we'll break on the other end, but those are pretty cool. So I can go to functions, and I can click on this one, and I can say delete. Okay. Now, these others I'm kind of just going to fly through because, again, you can just read these, right? So pipe events is a way to do events. Custom endpoints. There's a little bit difference between the custom endpoints and the functions. The function really is you're creating a function. Here you're creating a custom endpoint, like a REST call. Okay, so we'll go back. Yeah, it even says REST endpoint, and well, that's the function. If you go down to custom endpoints, let's delete this one. And here you can see it's HTTP endpoints. Okay, so there's a very fine line between the two, but it explains it over here. Versions, you can have multiple versions, which is really cool. So if I have one version, it's giving me a sum. If I have one version, it's giving me the orders table. I got one that's giving me orders mixed with persons. So there's a lot of stuff I can do right there. Listeners, if you need a listener, you can actually create. All this is built around microservices, right? There are some rules about microservices. Oh, it even says it there. It's funny how it says it, and I find it. But anyway, if you need a listener, right, of some sort, or if it's an MQ or something like that, then you can create a listener right here. Okay? And same thing with timers. Timers are really cool because I can set a timer if I need an event to happen at a certain time. Midnight, I need to reset the database. I don't know. I'm just kind of relatively throwing something out there. But the point is, to me, these are kind of where you create and work with your APIs. These kind of have to do with, like events and almost like webhooks in a way, but not really webhooks, but it needs an event or it's doing event. Okay, so that's kind of how I separate those. And that may be what they want to do with that pipe thing. Now, I'm going to cover these and then I'm going to end the video. But API rules, I think the reason my API didn't work is because I need to come in here and create a rule. And as you can see, it's pretty detailed. Okay, and then with the rule, I can create an authorization token, right, which is here. I can create a new one. Oops. And then with that authorization token, then I can assign it, roles, tokens, users. And I'm not sure why you can't see the users, but this allows you to add the user. Did it break? Keep in mind, this is a demo, but here, maybe it's because I need to add these, but the point is, in the other one, you could add the user. It looked just like that, but that's the user who's accessing your API, not your, and it may be because of the way I picked the authentication. But the point is, whenever you post it, you would post this as part of your post, right? Part of your headers or whatever. And that's how you'd read the API. And maybe the user's not showing it because of the type that I picked up here or something. So the test lab or the REST lab is really cool. This is a way for you to test your APIs. And that's really what we're talking about. These words right here, be careful because that's the words up here. And that's why I didn't like that garbage that was there. I know it's just generating some letters for you, but those are what ends up here. So for your end user, they might get some garbage and be like, what is this, right? But at least this makes sense. That's why I put orders there. But if I need to test, let's do addresses. And of course I can pass in arguments if I want to, right? That's probably you pass in your user stuff. But we can say get, and here's a get. Now I'm not testing the post, I'm not testing the delete, because this really does happen in the database. Now, Data Explorer is really, really cool because it shows me the data, and that's really what it is. So Data Explorer. The downside is, I think, again, if I make a change, I think it happens in my database. But if I'm building a test bed and I need to generate some data, or if I need to just insert some data, I can come in here and see what they're doing, and I can insert some test data for them. Okay. The other thing is the API docs. It does generate a set of documents for you. Now, I saw earlier where it was a Swagger set of docs, which is really cool. But again, I got to mess with the authentication piece. Notice the token to see what actually comes back. And here's a good example for that. But I believe it truly just creates, it does. It creates an API Swaggers for you. So there you go. Pretty cool, huh? Because then you get that whole test and all that cool stuff. It looks very professional. And then we have logs. Logs is great because this actually is seeing what I've been doing since I've been on this video. Pretty cool, huh? And then, of course, I can set my log levels. And then I can see issues if there's any issues. And there was one more. I guess it's missing in this version. But there was one more where I could actually see my data calls. Maybe they put it up to here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Maybe they put it in here. But there was one where I could actually see the stored procedure calls, which was really cool. Let's see. Authentication. Yeah, I don't see it. I think it was right here. So anyway, keep in mind, like I said, I upgraded this morning, so I'm kind of getting to know 5 myself. There's a lot of more changes in 5 than what was in 3, but I truly recommend just go in there once you get it set up, do the just kind of go through these documents. Version 3 I really didn't like, and the reason I didn't like it is because it was a headache because none of the documents work. I really had to figure it out on my own. But once I figured it out, then I went and realized that there was an upgrade, and then I upgraded, and now magically all the documents work. Oh, the other thing too is when you log in, let me show you this. You have this thing called Team Spaces. In your Team Spaces is where you add your users. Okay, so I have these users here that I've added, and of course I added their roles as well. So you want to do that. That's how you do the users, and they have a lot of good documents in here as well, and that's what I want to show you. Just click on any of these, Doc Center. This takes you to the parent of, what you need from Broadcom. But the point is there's a lot of good documents in this version that I recommend going and actually playing with. Now, one last thing, and then I'll let you go. If you click on the parent, that's the reason I saved it for last. Here are your projects. I have orders. I have this travel one. We just did the orders ones. I did that one a few minutes ago. This is the one that came with it. It's not truly connected to everything, so it's probably going to error out. Okay. Oh, and just for shortcuts, and maybe an easier way to get there, but I get there just by clicking this button to the parent level. But I can click on server. It gives me my server information, my license information, my authentication providers. Notice right now I just got the team space. Once I get connected to my API gateway, that's where I add that information. If I have any listeners that I need, or if I need to add more, I can do that as well. Same with the data providers. These are the ones out of the box. Notice the SQL one's not in there. I can add more, but when doing that, you got to make sure you have the proper connection file in your lib directory as well. And of course, here's my team spaces. So if I want to rename my team space, or if I want to create more, that's how you get more team spaces. Anyway, so I hope this at least was an okay for an introduction. Expect more of these videos in the future. I do plan to show, let's go back and click on this. I do plan to show more of this as I get detailed. I just want to get you all started so you can come here and play with it too. Now, again, I did not do the quick start. I don't know what's detailed in the quick start. So if I go here, but if you do something, keep in mind this is a shared environment. So, just if you're on my team. So let me put that out there first, because I'm doing this video mainly for my team. But if you do that, just keep in mind that when you go through this stuff, my biggest only concern is when something happens, whenever you make these changes, like these database changes and stuff, I think it affects the database as a whole. So if you go in there and if you're doing a live product, and if you change the database schema, that may break your product. So just keep that in mind. I guess the best case scenario would be to create a test database and use it. So, and I guess that's what I was getting at when I was saying, be careful with this quick start, because I'm not sure what all it does. I'll probably do it later myself, but when I do it, I'll probably try to use mock data or just something that won't affect anything else. Anyway, so at least I hope this was a help for an introduction. Again, the best thing about this is it has great documentation. The other one did not. Now, setting this up was a little tricky. I had to go from Linux to Windows because I couldn't figure out what the problem was. It turned out version 3 had an issue with which Java is supported, and because I didn't have documentation, I didn't know that. So I downgraded the Java, moved it to Windows. It worked just fine. So I may go back to Linux, but right now it's working just fine. So if it's not broke, don't touch it. It is running under a Tomcat environment, right? So because there's a couple ways you can install this. So if you look that up, that's what this one's running under. And it seems pretty stable. So it seems pretty good. Anyway, hope this was useful. And ping me if you have any questions. And do expect better, more videos in the future.